The village of Ugele was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where secrets hardly stayed hidden, and friendships were either forged in fire or torn apart by envy. Amidst its red soil and rustling mango trees lived two girls from completely different worlds, Oma and Ola. Oma was the type of girl you couldn't help but love. The only daughter of a wealthy lawyer and a celebrated chef, she walked through Ugele like a princess, in disguise humble, calm, and always smiling. Her family mansion stood tall at the end of the village road, painted cream and gold, with gates that only opened for warmth and generosity. Everyone admired her, not just for her beauty, but for the way she treated people like equals, no matter their background. Ola, on the other hand, lived in a cramped mud house with a leaking roof and 5 younger siblings crying over Gary. Life had taught her to be tough, even if that meant swallowing bitterness. She was sharp, top of her class, but always angry, always wishing her life was different. When she earned a scholarship to the same private school Oma attended, people called it a miracle. That's where they met. To everyone's surprise, Oma and Ola became inseparable. Oma saw something in Ola, potential maybe, or just someone who needed love. She invited her over for homework, for holidays, for no reason at all. Ola began to taste the life she always dreamed of. Air-conditioned rooms, warm meals, clothes not passed down from cousins. Oma's parents adored her. They treated her like a second daughter, showering her with gifts and affection. But deep in Ola's heart, something ugly brewed, something unspoken. She smiled with her teeth, but her eyes often followed Oma's every move like a shadow waiting to replace the sun. It was Oma's 18th birthday, and the celebration was everything one could dream of. Music echoing through the compound, colorful balloons swaying with the breeze, and the aroma of rich jollof rice and grilled chicken drawing in guests like bees to honey. As laughter filled the air and cameras clicked endlessly, Oma's father stepped forward with a wrapped box in hand. All eyes followed. When she opened it, the crowd gasped. A brand new iPhone 16 glistening under the afternoon sun. Cheers erupted, but Ola stood frozen. Her smile was tight, forced, and her claps came slower than the rest. Beneath her mask of celebration, jealousy clawed at her chest. The phone, sleek and shining, wasn't just a gift. It was a reminder of everything she couldn't have. A reminder that no matter how close she stood to Oma, they were still worlds apart. She whispered a wish to herself, not out of hope, but frustration, that her parents could afford something even remotely similar, that she could, for once, be the one receiving such admiration. Oma, oblivious to the shift in her friend's energy, had offered comfort, but it only deepened the wound. Ola's mood soured quickly. Without warning, she turned and left the party, ignoring questions and confused glances. Oma was stunned by the sudden departure, unsure of what had gone wrong. Later that night, Oma's parents, who had quietly observed the interaction, warned their daughter. Something about Ola's reaction didn't sit right with them, but Oma refused to see it. She believed in her friend. Years had slipped by like whispers in the wind, but fate had a strange way of reuniting paths that once crossed in innocence. Oma had blossomed into a woman of grace and power, CEO of a thriving fashion brand known for its elegance and bold African prints. She walked through the glossy aisles of a high-end Lagos mall, heels clicking softly against the polished floor, unaware that the past was watching her from just a few steps away. Ola stood near the entrance of a cheap boutique, her clothes worn, her eyes hollow. Life had not been kind. She had lost her father to illness, and with him, the fragile thread holding her family together. She had come to Lagos in search of hope, but found only rejection and despair. When their eyes met, the years melted. Shock, then recognition, then emotion swirled in an instant. Nama ran to her, arms outstretched, and the two embraced tightly. Yet even in the hug, Ola felt like a shadow clinging to light. Ola shared her story in broken pieces. Death, poverty, and the rugged corners of the city she now called home. She had been surviving, barely. Oma listened, heart heavy. Without a second thought, she offered Ola a place to stay, her spacious three-bedroom apartment in Lekki Phase 1. Not just that, she needed a new PA for her company. Ola could start afresh. Tears welled up in Ola's eyes. Life had once again placed her in Oma's world, only this time the stakes were higher. The Golden Jubilee celebration at Oma's family home was a grand affair. The compound glittered with decorations, filled with relatives, dignitaries, and old friends sharing stories over laughter and wine. When Oma walked in with Ola by her side, heads turned. Her parents froze for a moment, stunned by the sight of the girl they hadn't seen in years, the same girl who had once vanished without goodbye. Though surprised, they masked it quickly with warm smiles and open arms. Ola was embraced like lost family, offered a seat at the main table, and introduced to guests with pride. The scent of grilled suya, coconut rice, and baked chicken filled the air, but beneath the celebration, something subtle stirred. Oma's parents listened as Ola told her story of loss, hardship, and survival. Their hearts softened. They promised to support her in any way possible, just as they did years ago. But as they watched her closely, a quiet unease lingered behind their eyes. Something about the way Ola scanned the house, the way her eyes settled too long on Oma's luxury, made them uneasy. They welcomed her again, but this time they were watching carefully, quietly, and for good reason. Moving into Oma's Lekki apartment felt like stepping into a different universe. The space was a masterpiece. Marble floors, velvet curtains, golden light fixtures, and walls lined with portraits from fashion shoots. Every corner whispered wealth. As Oma handed her a spare key and showed her the guest room, Ola smiled, but deep inside, her chest tightened. Each morning they left together, Oma in tailored jumpsuits and designer heels, Ola with a tablet in hand, shadowing her like a loyal assistant. At the office, clients greeted Oma with admiration. Staff revered her. Magazines with her face lined the reception table. Her brand was booming, her confidence effortless, her grace magnetic. Ola watched it all. The praises, the deals, the endless stream of good fortune. And though Enma treated her like a sister, sharing meals, laughter, even secrets, jealousy began to swell in Ola's heart like a wound she couldn't close. It wasn't fair, she thought. No matter how close she stood, Oma always seemed to shine brighter, live fuller, receive more. Ola smiled when Oma looked, laughed when she joked, nodded when she spoke. But when Oma turned away, Ola's eyes hardened. Living under her roof wasn't just a blessing anymore. It was a burning reminder of everything she never had. It was one of those breezy Lagos evenings when the air carried the scent of sea salt and the distant hum of traffic. Ola was curled up on the couch, sipping cold juice, flipping through a fashion magazine she could never afford. The apartment was quiet until the front door swung open and Oma stepped in, glowing. Her face was lit with a radiance that couldn't be faked. Her heels clicked as she strutted toward the living room, phone in hand, her smile wide and triumphant. Something incredible had happened. Ola sat up, half curious, half bracing herself. Without looking up from the page, she teased, "What's with that smile? Did someone propose?" Oma let out a soft laugh, then dropped her handbag on the table. "Better. I just closed a deal worth 100 million. The magazine slipped from Ola's fingers. She stared, stunned, but quickly recovered with a forced chuckle. "Wow, that's amazing." Oma, oblivious to the storm behind Ola's smile, walked over and showed her the signed contract. The numbers were real. The ink was fresh. Ola's hands trembled slightly as she held the paper, but she masked it well. Then under her breath, barely a whisper, she muttered, "Why is it always you?" Oma paused. Her ears caught it, but she wasn't sure. She looked at Ola, who quickly beamed and said, "I'm so happy for you, really." There was a hesitation in Oma's eyes, a moment of doubt, but she brushed it aside, choosing trust over suspicion. She grabbed Ola's hand and said they were going out to celebrate. As Oma turned away, still glowing with joy, Ola's smile vanished. Her eyes narrowed. The breaking point had come, not with shouts, but with quiet envy and a dangerous decision forming in silence. Night had fallen like a heavy curtain, and the apartment was drowned in silence. Ola sat alone in the dimly lit living room, her hands gripping the armrest of the sofa, eyes fixed on nothing. Her heart thudded in her chest, not from excitement, but from something darker. Oma was asleep in her room, probably still smiling in her dreams, basking in the glow of her latest success. 100 million naira deal, another win. Ola couldn't take it anymore. The apartment, once a symbol of refuge, now felt like a gilded prison. Each polished tile, each designer bag a reminder that this wasn't her life. She was only passing through, a shadow standing beside the light. Her chest tightened with resentment. How could one person have it all? The money, the beauty, the admiration, and worst of all, the heart to give so freely. But Ola didn't want Oma's kindness anymore. She wanted her throne. That night, Ola made her decision. She would no longer clap from the sidelines while Oma soared. Her mind drifted to whispers she'd heard in the slums of Lagos, about Mama Uchi or Mama UC, the old woman with rotting teeth and eyes like cracked glass. A witch whose name was never said out loud. They said she had traded her children for eternal power. People feared her. Desperate people visited her. Ola was desperate. She grabbed her shawl and phone. Tomorrow she would find Mama UC, and she would do whatever it took. The sky was grey as Ola stepped into the outskirts of Makoko, where whispers led her to a forgotten path surrounded by twisted trees and broken bottles. At the end stood a crooked mud hut, its roof sagging like an old secret. The air around it felt colder. The hut belonged to no one, yet it breathed like something alive. She paused, heart racing. Her palms were sweaty, and every instinct screamed at her to run, but envy had already dragged her this far. She lifted the raffia curtain and stepped inside. Darkness swallowed her. The room stank of burnt herbs and blood. Strange symbols were scrawled across the walls in red. Skulls hung from the ceiling, swaying slowly as if watching. In the center sat Mama UC, skin wrinkled like dried leaves, eyes white and cloudy, but sharp. Before Ola could speak, the old woman leaned forward and whispered, "Why do you hate the one who has done nothing but love you?" Ola froze. The voice was ancient, cracked yet piercing. She hadn't said a word. How did she know? Tears burst from her eyes, hot and fast. She dropped to her knees, pretending to crumble. She muttered broken stories of poverty, loss, and abandonment. She said Oma always made her feel small, even in kindness. Mama UC's smile deepened, revealing yellowed teeth that looked more like fangs than anything human. The air inside the hut grew heavier, pressing against Ola's skin like a wet cloth. The flames in the corner flickered, casting shadows that moved on their own. She leaned closer, her voice a raspy whisper wrapped in menace. Mama UC listened in silence, her cracked lips curling into a smile that held no warmth. She'd heard lies before, but this one dripped with something delicious, something dangerous. "If you want her light to go out," she said, "you must give up something that holds your soul. Nothing sweet comes free." Ola's throat tightened. Her fingers dug into her thighs as she sat frozen, trembling. Sacrifice. She hadn't expected that. But then again, she hadn't come here for blessings. She came for destruction. What kind of sacrifice?" she asked, though part of her already knew. Mama UC's eyes gleamed. Blood, memory, something that can't be replaced. Only then will her life crumble like dry clay. Ola hesitated. The silence screamed louder than her thoughts. She could walk away. She could leave now, forget this place, and return to the life she barely tolerated. But bitterness had already poisoned her heart. She nodded slowly, and Mama UC grinned like death itself. The ritual would begin at midnight. And once the first step was taken, there would be no turning back. Back at the Lekki apartment, peace floated in the air like delicate perfume. Oma hummed softly as she folded her new fabric samples on the dining table, her eyes glowing with excitement. She had just returned from a meeting that could change everything. An international fashion house was interested in a major collaboration. If it went through, her brand would step onto a global runway. Ola sat across from her, nodding and smiling at all the right moments, but inside her heart was ice. The more Oma spoke about her dreams, her plans, her joy, the deeper the dagger twisted in Ola's chest. She masked her emotions with quiet nods, hiding the storm brewing beneath her calm expression. Oma, as always, spoke freely, trusting her completely. She had no idea that the very person she was confiding in had already crossed a line she could never uncross. That night, as the city of Lagos slumbered under moonlight, Ola rose from bed with a quietness that was almost inhuman. She clutched a small black pouch and slipped out the door, moving like a shadow toward the slums that birthed her bitterness. She returned to Mama Yusi's hut with the offering, something deeply personal, something sacred. The fire crackled, the ritual circle was drawn. Mama Yusi chanted words that made the air tremble. Back in the apartment, Oma turned in her sleep, a soft whimper escaping her lips. The curtain by her window rustled, though there was no wind. A shadow, dark and formless, slithered in through the opening. Oma's breathing quickened. Then her eyes fluttered open. Something was terribly wrong. To be continued. Hit the subscribe button so you're the first to catch what happens next. Also, like, comment and share with your friends and family. What did you think happened to Oma? Drop it on the comment section.